Welcome back to Wavecast, the official podcast of the Marine Institute of Memorial University. I am your host, Eugenie, for the final time this season, and today we are coming to you with part 2 of our season finale, all about the newest addition to the Marine Institute, the launch. First up, Wavecast producer Kate and I spent the day with second-year marine environmental students during tech sessions. In their second year, students focus on environmental issues relating to scientific and social problems of marine pollution and marine resource use. Kate went on board with the students to deploy oceanographic instruments in Harbour Main, just outside of Holyrood.
So first things first, get your sheets and a pencil or a pen. Do we have a sharpener?
I can be the writer.
We need the coordinates.
Are you writing this down? Yeah, no, it's 10. Okay.
9th.
Is it?
What's the night?
Oh my God! Sorry, Liam.
He's already giving me false data.
Yeah. Someone else will start reading to me.
So while he's doing that,
I guess you need
Tracy
temperature.
talked about observations, right? Looking at what's around you. So your guys look at what you think you should record. Pass it along to Liam. The power plant, absolutely. Yeah, you need to do observations. So make a note of our cormorants on the rock. Need private wharfs or docks or anything.
Or beaches or anything.
Roads, slipways.
They also deployed a YSI, which stands for Yellow Springs Instrument, and unlike its name suggests, a YSI is a portable water quality instrument that measures dissolved oxygen, total algae, pH, ammonia, chloride, nitrate, so all kinds of properties that can make informed decisions about what might be happening in the marine environment. They also deployed plankton nets so that they could later identify the types of plankton in the area.
The water samples at 3 points, and then when you take your sample up, we can do the oxygen and salinity using a refractometer. And then we can do the use of YSI. We can deploy that at a couple different depths as well. I don't think that one will go all the way down 50 meters. I think there's only a 10-meter cable maybe. So we'll see how far it'll go. And then we'll do the flow using the current meter at 2 depths. What else do we have to do? Plankton, yes. Do plankton too. We'll see if we get time. They didn't do it, but now if we get a sample today, then the other groups that are on shore will be able to do it tomorrow morning. So it would be good if we can get a plankton.
And using all of this information, the students are able to come up with stories or potential hypotheses about what might be happening in the ecosystems around Harbour Main.
Yes. And 5 minutes. We need a timer.
I'm seeing. Here, I'll get you 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay. Hold on. I said hold on.
Well, it's got to get to 2 meters.
Ready?
First. It's got to get 2 meters first. Anyway.
Oh, okay. You let me know when to start it.
Students also have the chance to make deeper connections with their peers as they're doing all of this field work and talk about things like their third-year technical projects.
You can build on it, right? So they sort of did the preliminary research, but they didn't really get time to perfect the method. So no one taking what they have and kind of building on that would be nice.
Well, it's kind of like they're.
It would.
Yeah.
Something different too, right? Like everybody does. There's always a water quality one. What else do we have to do?
That's it.
Plankton.
Oh,
yeah.
We could do plankton.
Plankton.
But is that going to be a
So, well, let's get that ready. It's going to be a vertical.
Oh, okay.
So we'll go down.
Right.
I
did a horizontal.
Yeah.
Toe behind.
Yeah. We're sort of station. Liam, I think this is your time to shine.
My time to shine. Yes, I've been recording.
Get in the game.
Yeah, you don't just get to sit around and write things down.
And all while Kate was out on the water, I was out on the beach with the other group of the second-year marine environmental students.
You guys done a seaweed identification stuff yet? You have? Okay,
No.
you can tell me then.
Oh, I haven't done that much.
It is.
The purpose of our beach walk was to identify human disturbances on the coastal ecosystems. Students were asked to look for things like streams, rivers, boardwalks, petrol runoff, garbage, and any other potential impacts that they could observe on the marine environment.
Mackerel perspective, urchins, rock crabs, mussels. Anything else that there's a sign of? Well, urchins, yeah.
Lots of seaweed.
Seaweed of various types, yeah.
I seen them areas and stuff.
Yeah,
Like them little, that's
little gastropods.
Students also learned about collaborating with communities and why communication is also a very key role in their future
think the
career.
community wants to be surprised by something coming in. So if you're representing a company and you're hoping to establish some sort of, operation of some sort, be it aquaculture or anything else, letting the community know what you're doing early on is critically important at the very earliest stages, because the last thing the locals want to see, some people are probably looking at us now, what you're asking what's going on. But the last thing they want to be is surprised. So right from the very early stages of the development or the activity, including the community and what you're doing, explaining what you're doing up front, even if it's very preliminary and you're not yet understanding exactly how it's going to develop, but including them so that they're aware of what's going on is critically important, because even if what you're proposing is...
Tech sessions give students the opportunities to get their hands wet, as Kelly Santos said in the last episode, and allow them to put all of their skills into practice that they learned in the classroom. The program itself gives these students a solid background in environmental science and technology, and by the end of the program, the marine environmental students also get certificates in standard first aid. They get WMIS, Med DVS, their SVOP, their small vessels operation proficiency, basic oil spill responder, confined space awareness, and H2S Alive. If you have questions for any of the instructors, you can send an email to wavecast.mi.mun.ca. Next up, I sat down with Kirk Regular, who is a marine geomatics specialist in the Center for Applied Ocean Technology, also known as CTEC, and Bethany Randell, a project engineer in CTEC as well. Bethany and Kirk, welcome to the podcast today. I thought we could just talk about your roles first and how you ended up at the launch. So maybe Bethany, if you want to start first.
I've actually wanted to work at Marine Institute essentially since I graduated electrical engineering at MUN. It was the very first job I applied for back in 2014. I didn't get it, and I was thrown for a loop for a little while. But when this dream job came up again, I said I got to go for it. So that's how I ended up at the launch. Was applying for my dream job, and now I'm living my dream job every day.
That's great. Did you just recently start working with the launch, or has it been?
I've been here for a year now. So I started in November of 2022.
Okay,
yeah.
Nice. And what about you, Kirk?
I guess I was an early adopter of geographic information systems when I came out of school, and did a lot of work with fisheries and oceans and such over the years, which put me in front of a computer most times. And a job came up here with the Center for Applied Ocean Technology maybe close to 10 years ago now, that allowed me to tap into a little bit more geospatial, or in this case marine geospatial environment, and allowed me to get out in the field, which I love it on a boat. So yeah, my role here at CTEC is basically supporting the mapping or seabed mapping equipment or technology that goes on boats. So I support several different vessels that puts me out on the water for several months of the year, but as well as being on the water collecting that data. There's processing that data, and then supporting other researchers who require that data. So maybe 1/3 of the year I might spend on the water, which for me is great.
And how many vessels are typically here at the launch?
With us, we've got CTEC has our own survey vessel that we have our key equipment on, but we also have other portable equipment like side scan sonars and another multi-beam system, USBL system. So the launch itself has another 30-foot vessel that we can avail of. Plus, we have smaller launch vessels that we might use for buoy work, large Zodiacs and smaller vessels. That's owned by the Marine Institute, and as well as that, we've got a couple of the research vessels owned by clients that we work with that support, and we support their research as well.
Yeah, we had Sarah Walsh on the podcast as well a few months ago, I believe now. And she was saying that she gets to do kind of a mix of everything. She also gets to work out. She works a lot with us in CFIR in the Center for Fisheries Ecosystems Research. And she also gets to go out offshore, which is always sounds great. And Bethany, you mentioned that you were instructing today. So is part of your role here as an instructor as well?
I got roped into substituting a course last September. So Craig Bolger, who is now an instructor with the School of Ocean Technology, he was in the role I keep being referred to as the new Craig. He when he took his instructor position, I moved into the project engineer position here at CTEC. But part of what he had been doing was a research project with the Explorer AUV that took him up into Baffin Bay up in the Arctic for all of September last year. Super cool project. But that meant that he was an instructor who had to leave his students for a month. And he said that with my experience with other autonomous underwater vehicles, it'd be neat for me to fill in for him for that month of September. So I took on 4 of his students as part of the autonomous vehicles program, brought them out here to the launch, and we worked with our micro AUVs, which are Seaber Yuko vehicles, and just went through the basics of how to do autonomous underwater vehicle operations. So it was really cool.
Did you happen to work with the president of MUN who is doing work with AUV?
Dr. Bose.
Dr. Bose. Okay, so was that part of his project?
So that Baffin project was Dr. Bose's project. They were looking at oil seeps up around Baffin. And so the AUV was equipped with various pieces of technology to be able to detect and dynamically change its mission based on where it saw that was air quotes
saw
oil
or
seeps.
Smelled.
Saw, smelled, sampled, whatever.
Yeah.
So part of that was actually using a sonar to detect oil. So the same way that bats or dolphins would see prey in the water, same kind of deal. And then dynamically change the mission to go and take samples of that plume in the water and see if there was any oil inside. So that was all through Dr. Bose's project.
One thing, so I work offshore a lot, but in a different context, less about the technology and more about sort of the biological activity. And we use nets, and I feel like that's as far as we really go with our technology. Oh, except for acoustics, but that's not me. So when you are doing these projects, and for example, the AUV project, the one that took place in Baffin Bay, you probably have to do so many hours of testing here. So what does that look like? And maybe, Kirk, you can speak to that too if you have, whether it's AUV or just testing equipment. How long do these projects last by the time they actually get out into working offshore?
Do you want to go first?
It's a big question.
Well, I mean, most of this ocean technology is still developing quite a bit. Nothing is really, off the shelf. Like you go to, Best Buy and buy a new television. Even those, smart TVs are constantly evolving. But the ocean technology is obviously very much in a younger state. So the manufacturers might give you the procedures of how to get things up and running, but that's not always going to work exactly the same. And even the setup of the technology is never, duplicated from one vessel to another. So, yesterday I was working with a team from Fugro, mobilizing equipment for their survey, and they've had, upwards of 10 people crawling over a boat trying to integrate all the different systems. And it's not always as easy as what the manufacturer might lead you to believe when they sell you the equipment. And given the fact that it's also on a boat in a saltwater environment, there's so many issues that can make things not work. So there's technically, we're always trying to work around certain issues on the boat or keep things up to date with new software and firmware updates for the equipment that we use. And so it's you need a lot of time for constant testing of the equipment to make sure everything is calibrated and integrated and talking to each other.
Someone at Kraken once his motto, or he had several, but one of them was "not tested, not working," and that is so true in every aspect of every piece of technology I've ever worked on. If you don't test every case, guaranteed when you run into that case in the field, something's not going to work, or it's not going to behave the way you expect it to work. So yeah, it's a lot of testing, and in my opinion, I don't think you can ever. I mean, I'm an engineer, so nothing's ever perfect, and I don't think you could ever do enough testing. So with the AUV last summer, it was out a lot. We had a bubbler device. So the way micro bubbles behave underwater is very similar, apparently, to the way that these oil seeps would behave underwater. And so that was our analog for oil, was just releasing air bubbles into the bay. And yeah, it was just constantly testing and find out what worked, what didn't, go improve, test again. What worked, what didn't, improve, test again. It was, always testing.
So that really means that the launch is critical for so many projects at the Marine Institute in order to ensure their success when they're out there in the real world. I have often thought about when we have centers like this, like in Holyrood, and I'm from BC, and we had a few of these testing more centers in different places. And what ends up happening is that you have a really good idea of the oceanographic and bathymetric complexities around that area. So I'm just curious, how well has Holyrood been mapped? Because I'm thinking you probably, if you could see a speck of dust on the seafloor at this point, it seems like one of those places where you're constantly learning, expanding.
Would you say Holyrood is probably the most mapped bay in Newfoundland?
It is mapped, again, over and over many times, but a lot of times with students on the water, they're just getting used to operating the equipment. So, I mean, there's a lot of structure that will go into a very accurate survey when it comes to tidal changes in the water, current changes in the water, how well you did a sound velocity profile in the system, when you take those sound velocity profiles and how they're applied. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of varying parameters. So yes, it has been mapped many, many times, but really, really well mapped, where all the separate components of doing a proper seabed survey, it can be done definitely a little better the next time we go out. And technology is always changing as well. I mean, it's been mapped with sonars that have a larger beam spacing than what we might have currently available to us, or we get new side scan sonar surveys that we can more accurately position underwater, because when it comes to mapping something, you need a very good positioning system, and which is always improving as well. So, applying that better positioning to the sensors that we're using to map the seabed or survey the seabed is always getting updated, so it can always be done better the next time.
I actually just wanted to add to that. Last year we were in, I think it was Lancaster Sound, and we were mapping the side of a glacier, and it was working with someone who had been who is an alumni of the Marine Institute, who was in the ocean mapping program. And I thought it was the most interesting thing ever, because they had the multi-beam sort of on this pendulum just facing up down at the glacier, just so they could see sort of that recession line, so that next year, actually this year now, we're going back to do the same thing. And again, it's not my project, but I was just there trying to learn and absorb what was happening. So and that was only in the last few years that was incorporated into the sampling plan. So I can only imagine all of these new things that are coming and how useful it can be for all sorts of things: glaciers, seafloors, all of that, shipwrecks.
Well, I volunteer on the board with the Shipwreck Preservation Society here in Newfoundland, and I guess I'll put a plug in here. We're recently relaunching our website, and over a couple of weeks, I guess, or several weeks now, I've been getting online, just Googling potential locations of shipwrecks, because I use it as targets. In the next few days, and we're going to be transiting a vessel, so I'll want to run the multi-beam, from point A to point B. When we get to that project area, I want to know all those potential shipwreck targets from here to there, so I can at least go investigate to see if there is anything left on the seabed, or if those coordinates or reports are accurate at all. So yeah, there's there's thousands of shipwrecks here, many of which obviously would have crashed against the coastline. But there's, offshore, there's bigger ships that were lost during, the Battle of the Atlantic, they call it, in two. So there's large structures still left on the seafloor. From an archaeology perspective, we deal with the Provincial Archaeology Office, but we've also had, I've had conversations with people at Coast Guard who would like to know the specific locations of a lot of these shipwrecks, especially more modern day shipwrecks that would be not a steamship, but a fishing vessel or large vessel that went down could be leaking oil, similar to one that was leaking several years ago. So from a Coast Guard perspective or preservation, if there's an oil slick that someone notices on the surface, is that because a ship dumped oil or dirty bilge water, or is it coming from a potential shipwreck that's lying on the seabed? And so we're trying to engage with the Coast Guard and DFO, the Provincial Archaeology Office, and the fishers as well. You mean that if there's a vessel or a shipwreck on the bottom that could get their fishing gear entangled with? So there's a lot of impacts there. And if it's a fairly clean shipwreck, it provides habitat for fisheries as well. So there's a lot of shipwreck from an archaeology perspective is touches that industry, but it touches so many other industries as well.
Bethany, are there any projects that you're working on that you're particularly excited about here?
Yeah, so we're working on the Remote Operations Center, building the Remote Operations Center at the launch, which is part of the Maritime Autonomous Systems testbed. So hopefully, I'm really passionate about remote operations now that I know what it is, because it opens the door for a lot of people who wouldn't have otherwise had opportunity to have a career in the ocean sector. Lots of times you end up with, ROV pilots and mappers and folks involved with fisheries applications. Turns out they get seasick and now they can't go offshore. But also things like if you have commitments that you can't spend a third of the year offshore, or if you have a physical limitation that means you can't pass a medical, you can still be an ROV pilot. You can still be processing mapping data. You can still do a lot of these things. You can still pilot autonomous surface vehicles, etc., through remote operations. And I'm really passionate about getting more people into the ocean sector because I think it's an absolutely amazing. I know it's a cliche line about how we know more about space than we do about the ocean, but why is that? We shouldn't. So yes, the more people we can get involved in this really amazing sector, I think the better. So that's why I'm super excited and passionate about the remote operations center that we're building here.
Wow, that was very well put. I completely agree, and I think that that's something that the Marine Institute does really well. And one of the really nice things about this podcast is that I've been able to talk to people in all these different sectors from within our school, obviously. And I like to hear how people came to study this, what they enjoy about it, and where they see their careers going in the future. And they are very different, and I think all are definitely needed.
Well, if I could also jump in there and kind of reiterate the importance of remote operations. So it's not only people who probably who would get seasick or can't get on a vessel. I started out in this industry doing a lot of work in the Arctic, and a lot of times it might be vessels of opportunity or survey vessels that have the equipment, but maybe not the accommodation to have a hydrographer. So if a survey vessel goes out to collect, fishing resource information, there's not enough people to be on board to do the hydrographic survey as well. And which is unfortunate. If a vessel is capable of doing that, they're only fishing during the daytime, and at night they're steaming around in areas that have no soundings or has never been surveyed, but there's nobody there to really acquire that information at night. So having a remote operations and through new satellite technology and stuff that allows us to acquire or collect that data and even stream it now via the satellite, it's a game changer for us. So we can take advantage now of more vessels of opportunity and always have people. We could hire students here to be collecting data on vessels in the Arctic, when that technology becomes available. So over the next 10 years, it's going to be a major change, I think, in this industry. And as well, not only getting to the boat, even if there was accommodation available, like how do you get to a remote place like Greece Fjord in the high Arctic when there's so limited aircraft kind of flying in there? You have to plan it months in advance to make sure you get a seat on that plane. And with vessels, scheduling and things are changing all the time. It's so expensive to get somebody to those vessels if they are in very remote locations to take advantage of that. So it's the scheduling, the timing, the cost of personnel, the cost of a vessel, which you need to. If you have a vessel on the water, you got to try and maximize its use 24 hours a day and not just for 8 or 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add to that too. One of the things that I talk about when we do tours and people come into the remote operations center and ask, why is this important? Having fewer people offshore, in my opinion, decreases risk. You're increasing safety there by just having that's one less person that could be in danger by being offshore. And like you said, with especially the fishing vessels, if you're doing one thing during the daytime and you're doing mapping during the night, that one hydrographer could be doing a pile of different projects just based on where those vessels are and what time they're operating. So you can really maximize how many projects a single person can be touching, can be working on. And but just safety at sea is huge, so the fewer people we have out there, the better. That way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, because it was very interesting, I just wanted to touch a little bit about tech sessions. And what's that like? How do students like tech sessions? Are they happy to get out there? Are they cold? Are they ready to go home at the end of the day? Or what's the general consensus around tech sessions?
It's our busiest season, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it definitely is a busy season for us. We get the instructors who are used to standing up in a classroom out on the vessel, trying to teach their students in a different way. Obviously, there's never a boat big enough to house everybody in a comfortable environment. So it's challenging, scheduling wise, weather wise, trying to get on the water, technology wise, trying to make sure all the equipment is working right, engaging with the students to do something that's a little more hands on. They're getting their hands wet in this case when they're getting out on the water, deploying equipment and such. So it's a challenge, which is good. Everybody needs a challenge, and it's fun to get people, especially the students, out on the water doing the things that they could potentially be doing for the rest of their lives for the first time. So getting beyond the academics and more into the functional aspects of what their careers are going to turn out to be.
I would imagine that we talked about earlier how some people may not know that they might get seasick, or maybe they don't like to be at sea. And tech sessions seems to me like the first time that if a student went straight from high school with not much sea experience, went into, say, the Marine Institute, did a 1-year program, started tech sessions or during their program, and then that was the first sort of turning point where they think, okay, do I like this or do I not? So I think it could be very polarizing for that student. But it sounds like what I've heard is people have really enjoyed it, and they've loved to see all of the students out there in all the boats and chaos, but
fun chaos.
Fun chaos, yeah.
Oh yes, no, absolutely. I don't mean to be negative about it. But we do have to work with the weather in Newfoundland. Obviously, it's going to get rainy. It's going to get cold at times. We have gloves and protective equipment to keep us warm and such on the boat. But no, it is fun to get everybody on the water. And
I've heard that there's a whale in Holyrood the last few days, so maybe people get the opportunity to see some marine mammals.
Yeah.
The kinds of nature.
Usually likes hanging out just around the other building, the Holyrood Marine Base building, right where the lifeboat is supposed to be launched. He's been feeding on something there. So it's really fun at lunchtime to watch the whales.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to be here at the launch, working from vessels. And in bad weather and in good, obviously, but there's always been lots of wildlife around. When I've taken students in on boat, we go visit where we know there's a couple of eagles' nests. We've seen schools of tuna jumping into the water.
Oh, wow.
Last year I've seen codfish jump out of the water after capelin, schools of capelin. When the capelin starts to roll here in the summertime, we see pods of porpoise and dolphins come through here.
That was my first day. What a welcome to Holyrood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your first day of your dream job.
First day of my dream job, Kirk. It was Kirk, actually. You were taking me out to see one of the boats out here on the Marginal Wharf, and we turn around and there's this enormous pod of white-beaked dolphins coming in the harbor.
Yeah, I would. I'll be coming here next week, and I will work here for the rest of my program.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah.
Get your small vessel operator's certificate and we can put you to work.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to. Okay, well, this was so interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
As this season of Wavecast comes to an end, I really want to say thank you to everyone who has taken the time to listen and who took their time to be on the podcast. And I also want to give a major shout out to Kate Saunders, who is the digital marketing advisor and the producer of Wavecast. She has truly been the backbone of this podcast, and without her perseverance, her planning, her patience, we would not have been able to make as many episodes as we did. And most recently, we would not be able to say that we are an award-winning podcast because of her. I'd also like to thank the marketing and communications team at the Marine Institute, which includes Kim Thornhill and Maura Baird, for their guidance and support with the podcast this season, with whom we could not have done it either. For me, this whole experience has been incredibly fulfilling, and I'm so grateful to have gotten to learn and be inspired by so many of you. I have loved being your host, and I have loved sharing the stories of the people in this building. I've said it many times this season, but I will say it again for the final time, which is that the Marine Institute is small, but it is mighty. I know that now more than ever that the work that happens here is extraordinary and unique and really captures the heart and soul of Newfoundland and Labrador. So thank you again for listening. We will see you in September for Season 2.